I screamed so loudly the walls trembled. There was blood on the floor. I was in pain, shaking, holding my stomach, and begging God to take my life instead. My husband had gone to work, and I was home alone with my grown son, David. I had just returned from the hospital with the news that I was 2 months pregnant. But the truth burned like acid in my heart. It wasn't my husband's baby. It was my son's. Yes, my own son. He had abused me one night while I was sleeping. I woke up to find him on top of me, whispering, "Mama, don't scream, please." I couldn't believe it then. I still couldn't believe it now. And now, 2 months later, I stood in our kitchen holding the pregnancy result, crying. He walked in, saw me, and simply said, "So you're keeping it?" I didn't answer. He stepped closer. "Does Dad know?" I shook my head. He smiled. A wicked, proud smile. "I told you not to say anything, Mama. You belong to me now." That's when my heart truly broke. I wanted to run, but where would I go? Who would believe me? And worst of all, my husband, Daniel, still had no idea. Suddenly, I felt sharp pain in my belly and collapsed. I hit the edge of the chair, and the pregnancy blood began to flow down my legs. That was the moment I knew my life would never be the same again. Let me take you back to where it all began. It all started on a warm Sunday afternoon in our small house in a quiet village in southern Spain. My name is Maria, and I was once known for being the proud, smiling wife of Daniel, a gentle farmer, and a loving mother of 3. We lived simply but happily, eating fresh tomatoes, drinking warm milk, and praying every night under our leaky roof. But everything changed the year our son, David, returned home from the city. He had gone away to work after finishing school, and I hadn't seen him in 2 years. When he arrived with 2 heavy bags and a silent look in his eyes, I hugged him tightly and cried. I didn't know what had happened to him in the city, but I could tell something in him had changed. He didn't talk much. He didn't laugh. He didn't even pray with us anymore. But I thought time would help. I was wrong. David started staying up late, watching strange things on the TV and computer. He barely spoke to his father. But with me, he stared. Too much. Too long. Like he was always thinking something. One night, I was in the bathroom washing my feet when he walked in without knocking. I gasped and pulled my dress down. He didn't say sorry. He just stood there looking. "David, what are you doing?" I shouted, pushing him out and locking the door. He laughed. That laugh still haunts me. I told my husband Daniel about it, but he brushed it off. "He's just tired, Maria. The city has a way of messing with young men's heads. Give him space." So I kept quiet, but the signs grew worse. One night, I woke up and found him sitting at the foot of my bed, just watching me. I screamed. My husband woke up, confused. David said, "I thought I heard something in your room, Mama." Daniel believed him. I didn't. One rainy night, Daniel was out of town for a funeral. I was alone with David and my youngest daughter, Isabella, who was already asleep. I locked my door. Or so I thought. I had fallen asleep in my wrapper when I felt a hand cover my mouth. I tried to scream, but he was stronger. Bigger. "Mama, sit." Just let it happen. He forced himself on me. I cried and fought, but it was useless. I was just a woman, a mother, against a man who had lost his soul. The next morning, he acted like nothing happened. I couldn't look at him. I couldn't speak. I wanted to tell Daniel, but how do you explain to your husband that your own son? So I stayed quiet. A month later, I began to feel sick. I vomited every morning and couldn't eat much. Daniel was excited. "Could it be that you're pregnant again?" he asked with a big smile. I forced a smile too. I couldn't tell him the truth. I waited a few more weeks, then secretly went to the hospital. I cried when the doctor said I was 2 months pregnant. I knew exactly when it happened. I walked back home like a ghost. That evening, I found David in the kitchen. "I know why you went to the hospital," he said, chewing on an apple. I didn't speak. He walked close, whispered in my ear, "It's mine. You carry my child now." I slapped him. Hard. He grabbed my arm and squeezed. "Don't ever do that again, Mama. You don't want your husband to know, do you?" I pulled away and ran to my room, locked the door. The next day, I packed a small bag, ready to run away. But where would I go?
Who would take me in?
I thought about going to the priest, but I was ashamed. I thought about telling the police, but how do I prove such a thing? And what about Daniel? Would he believe me? Or would he think I was lying to protect his secret lover? I sat on the floor crying, helpless. Days passed. David grew bolder. He would touch me in front of the others. Just small touches on the arm, the back, the waist, but I knew what they meant. One evening, he placed his hand over my stomach. "Our child is growing," he whispered. That night, I cried into my pillow until it was wet like rain. My husband remained clueless, loving, supportive, dreaming of having another child with me. I felt like I was dying inside. I considered harming myself, or even the baby, but I couldn't. One morning while cooking, I fainted. That's when I knew something was wrong with the pregnancy. I went to the hospital again. They told me the baby was weak, and I needed rest and peace of mind. Peace of mind? That didn't exist in my home anymore. I returned home, hoping to hide the truth forever. But that afternoon, David came into the kitchen and saw me crying with the test result in my hand. "So, you're keeping it," he said with that same cold voice. That's when I collapsed. I felt sharp pain, then blood. As I lay on the floor screaming, David just stared at me. Then he stepped forward, and with his foot, he pushed the pregnancy test under the table just before I heard the front door open. It was my husband, Daniel. The front door creaked open, and I heard Daniel's boots on the dusty floor. I was still on the kitchen floor, blood pooling beneath me, pain twisting through my lower belly like fire. My breath came in short, sharp gasps, and my vision blurred. My heart pounded as I watched David bend down calmly and whisper through his teeth, "Don't say a word, or I'll finish what I started." He stood upright and turned as if nothing had happened. "Papa," David called out, pretending to smile. "You're back early." Daniel's voice came from the hallway. The burial ended quickly. I took the first bus. Then he entered the kitchen. The sight of me, covered in blood, curled on the floor, froze him. "Maria," he shouted, dropping his bag and rushing to me. What happened? I couldn't speak. My mouth trembled as tears poured down my cheeks. I looked up at David, begging him silently with my eyes to leave, to disappear, to not be here in this moment. But he stood still, watching, smirking. Daniel lifted me gently in his arms. "We need to get you to the hospital now." "I'll get the car," David offered quickly, dashing out of the house. As Daniel carried me out, I looked up at his face. His eyes were filled with worry and love. He had no idea, no clue. He still thought he was protecting me from the world, never knowing the danger had already made a home inside our walls. At the hospital, the doctors rushed me into a room. Daniel sat in the waiting area, pacing and asking questions. David sat too, calm like nothing mattered. 2 hours passed. The doctor finally came out holding a clipboard. "We stopped the bleeding," he said softly. "But the pregnancy is in danger. She must rest. No stress, no lifting, no emotional upset. It's still early, but we might save the baby." Daniel nodded quickly. "Thank you. Can I see her?" The doctor gave him permission, and he went in. David stayed behind. I stared at him from the hospital bed through the half-open door. He didn't blink, just kept staring at me. Daniel sat by my side and held my hand. "You didn't tell me you were pregnant," he whispered with a smile. "Why, Maria?" I turned away. I couldn't lie, but I couldn't speak the truth either. "I didn't know how to tell you," I whispered. He kissed my hand. "This child will be our blessing. I know it." His joy stabbed me deeper than any knife could. I turned my face toward the window and wept silently. Back at home, Daniel told everyone I had to rest. He told Isabella and our youngest, little Julio, that Mama was sick and must not be disturbed. I stayed in bed, barely speaking, barely eating. David, however, had no such silence. He became louder in the house, more present, almost possessive. He brought food to my room, tried to feed me, touched my shoulders whenever Daniel wasn't looking. One night, Daniel was outside fixing the generator, and David entered my room. He sat beside my bed. "Did you think bleeding would get rid of it?" he asked coldly. I looked away. "You should be happy, Mama. We're connected now. Forever." "Get out," I whispered. "I'm not leaving. You're mine." I sat up slowly. "You're not well, David. You need help." He chuckled. "No. You need help. And you better pray Papa doesn't find out, because you know what he'll do." He stood and leaned over me, whispering into my ear, "And remember, this baby is not going anywhere." Then he left. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I tried to act normal. I joined the family for breakfast, forcing a smile. David sat across from me, and I avoided his eyes. Daniel reached for my hand across the table. "We should have a small church Thanksgiving this Sunday. For the baby." I nodded weakly. Isabella clapped. "A new baby. I want a baby, sister." Julio giggled. "No. Baby brother." David leaned forward. "A child is a gift, no matter how it comes." I felt the bread in my mouth go dry. I excused myself and rushed to the bathroom to throw up. That afternoon, while Daniel napped and the kids were playing outside, I made a decision. I took the spare phone Daniel had given me months ago, one he didn't use, and dialed the only person I could trust outside my family, my childhood friend, Rosa. Rosa and I grew up in the same village. We lost touch over the years, but I had her number stored. When she picked up and heard my voice, she screamed with joy. But when she heard my tone, flat, broken, her joy faded. "Maria, what's wrong?" "Rosa," I whispered. "I need help. I'm pregnant and it's not Daniel's." There was silence. "What?" she said slowly. "My son, he forced himself on me." Rosa gasped. "Maria, are you serious?" I broke down crying, unable to continue. "Okay," she said quickly. "Listen, you need to get out of that house. Come to my place. You can stay with me." "I can't," I whispered. "He's always watching. I'm scared." "Don't worry. I'll come. I'll come to the market on Wednesday. We'll meet there. I'll help you run." I nodded. "Thank you." I hung up. Hope flickered inside me for the first time in months. But hope doesn't stay for long in a house full of shadows. That night, something terrifying happened. David came into my room with a small bag in his hand. "What's that?" I asked. He opened it and pulled out a small baby shirt. "For our child," he said. I froze. "Why are you doing this to me, David?" I cried. "I'm your mother." He shrugged. "I love you. In my own way." "You're sick. This isn't love. You ruined me." He frowned. "You never understood me. You always loved Papa more. Always gave Isabella more attention. But now I have you, and I'm never letting go." He dropped the shirt on my bed and left. I stared at that tiny shirt for hours, my mind spinning. The next day, I pretended everything was fine. I smiled at Daniel, played with Julio, helped Isabella with homework. All the while, I waited for Wednesday. When it finally came, I faked a headache and told Daniel I wanted to go to the market alone, just for fresh air. He agreed. David offered to go with me, but I insisted I'd be fine. At the market, I spotted Rosa near the orange cellar. She waved at me. I smiled. But just as I began walking toward her, I felt a hand grip my arm. It was David. He had followed me. "I knew you were planning something," he whispered. "You were going to run." "Let go of me," I hissed. But he tightened his grip. "You really think you can run from me, Mama?" Rosa saw what was happening and rushed over. "Who is this?" she asked. David smiled. "I'm her son, just helping her around." Rosa stared at me. She knew I was in danger. But I smiled and nodded. "Yes, Rosa. This is David. I'm fine." She didn't believe me, but she couldn't do anything. David pulled me away and walked me back to the house. That night, I cried in my room, clutching my belly. The baby was still there, still alive. I looked out the window and prayed silently. "God, if you exist, please save me." The next morning, Daniel woke me early. "We're going to the church," he said. Pastor Elijah is praying for couples with child. I wanted to say no, but I couldn't. At the church, I felt weak. My knees shook. The prayers went on. Pastor Elijah laid hands on every couple. When he got to us, he paused.
He stared at me.
Then he said softly, "God sees hidden pain, and he will bring justice." I began to cry. After church, as we drove home, Daniel looked at me. "Are you okay?" I nodded, but I wasn't. That night, I woke up to a scream. It was Isabella. I ran out of bed and saw her at the top of the stairs, shaking. "David tried to come into my room," she cried. My blood ran cold. I ran to Daniel's room. "Wake up. Your daughter." David tried to. Before I could finish, David came out of the shadows, calm as always.
"She's lying," he said.
Isabella sobbed. He tried to touch me. Daniel looked at us both, confused. I grabbed Isabella and pulled her behind me. "Now do you believe me? Now do you see who your son is?" Daniel stared at David, then at me. "Maria, what are you saying?" I took a deep breath. "I'm saying I'm pregnant with David's baby. He forced himself on me. I kept quiet for your sake, but now he's trying to do the same to your daughter." Daniel's eyes widened in shock. Silence filled the room. Then he lunged at David. Daniel lunged at David with a rage I had never seen before. His hands wrapped around David's shirt collar, and he slammed him against the wall so hard the photo frame of our wedding fell and shattered on the floor. "You touched my wife." Daniel roared, fists clenched. "You touched your own mother?" David didn't fight back. He didn't even flinch. He stared into his father's eyes and said coldly, "She never said no." I screamed. Daniel's grip tightened. "You evil boy. You're not my son. You're a monster." Julio came out of his room, sleepy-eyed and confused. "Papa," he asked. I turned and quickly grabbed him, holding him tight, so he wouldn't see what was happening. Isabella was still crying, hiding behind the table. Then suddenly, Daniel let go of David and stepped back. His face was pale, stunned. "Wait," he whispered. The baby you're carrying, it's really his?" I nodded, crying. "Yes." Daniel stepped back again and fell into the nearest chair. His hands covered his face. For the first time since I had known him, my strong, peaceful husband wept like a baby. He cried so hard his body shook. "I gave you everything," he whispered. "I worked so hard for this family. I gave up my youth to raise you. And this is what you do." David dusted off his shirt and looked at him. "I didn't ask to be born here," he said coldly. "You raised me like I was nothing, like I didn't matter." "You're sick," Daniel whispered. "You made me this way," David snapped. "You pushed me away, ignored me, treated me like an outsider. Mama was the only one who ever looked at me with love." "That was motherly love," Daniel shouted. "You twisted it. You turned it into evil." The room went silent. You could hear the wind outside blowing hard against the windows. I stepped forward. "Daniel, please call the police." He looked up at me. "What?" "Call the police. He has to go. If we don't stop him now, someone else will suffer. Our daughter, maybe even another child. He's dangerous." David laughed. "Call the police?" he said mockingly. "And tell them what? That your wife slept with her son and got pregnant? You think they'll believe you? You think they won't look at you like you're disgusting?" I held my belly. "I'm not ashamed anymore," I said. "I'd rather be shamed and free than live like a prisoner." Daniel stood up, walked slowly to the phone on the wall, and dialed. David didn't stop him. He walked into the kitchen and calmly poured himself a glass of water. While Daniel was talking to the police, David walked past him and whispered, "I'll be back. One day. And you'll all regret this." Then he turned to Isabella and smiled. Isabella hid behind me. The police arrived 20 minutes later. 2 men and 1 woman in uniform. We told them everything. They arrested David without much struggle. He smiled the whole time, as if he had won. "Don't worry, Mama," he said as they took him away. "You'll miss me." I turned my back to him and held Isabella tighter. After they left, Daniel walked back into the living room and sat down. The house felt different. Quieter.
Heavier.
Did anyone else know? He asked me. I shook my head. Only Rosa. I tried to run. He followed me. Daniel nodded slowly. I failed you, he said. I failed my family. No, I said gently. He failed us. You didn't see it coming, neither did I. That night, we didn't sleep. We held each other, just sitting in silence. For the first time in months, I felt safe. But that safety came with a new fear, the baby. Would I be able to love a child created from such pain? A few weeks passed. The village was buzzing with rumors. The news spread quickly that a woman had been violated by her own son and was carrying his child.
Some people pitied me.
Some blamed me. Others avoided me completely. At church, some members didn't shake my hand. Some mothers whispered when I passed by. But Pastor Elijah stood by me. He even preached a sermon titled, "What the Devil Meant for Evil, God Can Turn for Good." I tried to hold on to that hope. My pregnancy continued, but it wasn't easy. I had nightmares. I cried often. I would wake up and run to the bathroom, just to throw up from fear, not sickness. Isabella also changed. She became quiet.
Always near me.
She wouldn't sleep unless I was in the same room. One night, as I was rubbing my stomach and staring at the ceiling, Isabella walked in and said, "Mama, will the baby be evil too?" My heart broke. I pulled her into my arms and whispered, "No, my love. A child isn't evil because of how they were made. We raise them. We teach them love." She looked up at me. "Then can I help raise the baby? I'll protect him." I kissed her forehead. "Yes, darling. We'll raise him with love, not shame." Daniel tried his best. He bought me special food, talked to the baby in my stomach, and made sure I rested. But I could see he was still broken. One afternoon, he came home with a strange look on his face. "What's wrong?" I asked. He sat beside me and took my hand. "I went to see David." I froze. "He's in a psychiatric facility now," he explained. "The police said he's not mentally stable. They transferred him." I didn't speak. He didn't say much, but he asked if the baby was okay. I nodded slowly. "Yes." "Do you want to see him?" Daniel asked. "No," I said firmly.
Not now.
"Maybe not ever." He nodded. "I understand." Another month passed. Then another. Soon I was in my 8th month. The baby was growing well. The doctor said everything looked normal. Then one night I woke up to find blood on the sheets. I screamed. Daniel rushed in and saw the red stains. He quickly carried me to the car and sped to the hospital. At the hospital, the nurses wheeled me into a room. The doctor came in frowning. "The baby is coming early," he said. "Too early. We'll try to slow it down, but you need to be prepared." I held Daniel's hand and nodded. The pain began to rise. Each hour was longer than the last. Tears ran down my cheeks. "I'm scared," I whispered. "You're strong," Daniel said. "You've made it this far. You're not alone." After 12 long hours, the doctor said it was time. The nurses helped me push. I screamed so loud the windows could have cracked. One last push. And then, I heard it.
A cry.
A small, soft, beautiful cry. The baby was here. The nurse wrapped him in a blue cloth and handed him to me. He was tiny.
Pink.
Innocent. My heart broke and healed at the same time. I looked into his eyes, and I saw nothing of David. I saw only a baby. A child. A second chance. Daniel stood beside me and wiped my tears. "He's perfect," he whispered. I nodded. "I want to name him Emmanuel," I said softly. "It means God with us." Daniel smiled. "It's perfect." We both stared at the baby in silence. Then I whispered, "We will raise him with love. We will not let the past define him." And for the first time since the nightmare began, I felt hope. But just as we began to settle into this new beginning, a letter arrived from the facility where David was held. A letter addressed to me from David. I stared at the letter in my hands for a long time. The envelope was plain, cream-colored, with my name written in shaky handwriting. It had no return address, just a stamp from the psychiatric facility where David was being kept. My heart pounded in my chest. My fingers trembled. I didn't want to open it. I didn't want to read his words. I didn't want his voice in my head again.
But I had to.
Daniel was in the kitchen feeding baby Emmanuel. Isabella was doing her homework quietly at the table. The house felt peaceful, safe, something I hadn't felt in a long time. But this letter was a storm waiting to blow it all away. I slowly peeled the envelope open and pulled out the folded paper inside. My eyes skimmed the page. His handwriting was jagged, uneven, but it was his. Every word felt like a blade against my chest. Mama, I know you hate me. I don't blame you. Sometimes I wake up and I don't remember what I've done. Other times, I remember everything and wish I didn't. The doctors say I'm sick, that I have a disorder. I don't even know what that means. All I know is something in me is broken. But I remember your eyes when I hurt you. I remember your screams. I remember the blood. And now, I can't forget. They say you had the baby.
A boy.
Is he okay? Do you still cry at night? I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know that I think about you every single day. Sometimes I wish I could go back to that night. Stop myself. Lock my own door. Walk away. But I didn't.
And I live with that now.
Take care of him. Of yourself. Of Papa. And the others. If you never write me back, I understand. But I'll keep writing. Because even though I destroyed everything, you're still my mother.
David.
I folded the letter slowly and placed it in my lap. My hands were shaking. My eyes were hot with tears I didn't want to let fall.
He was sorry.
Or at least he believed he was. But did it change anything? Did regret undo pain? Daniel walked in and placed Emmanuel in his crib. He noticed the letter in my hand. Is that from him? I nodded slowly. What did he say? He said he thinks about us. That he knows what he did and that he's sorry. Daniel sighed and sat beside me. He didn't ask to read it.
He didn't need to.
What are you going to do? He asked gently. I shook my head. I don't know. I looked at baby Emmanuel, who is now fast asleep, his chest rising and falling peacefully. He was so innocent, so untouched by the past. And then I looked at Isabella, whose childhood had been rattled by her own brother's darkness. Maybe I'll write back, I said. Not for him, for me. Daniel nodded. Do it when you're ready. The days passed quietly after that. I settled into motherhood again, though this time felt different. I was older, tired, worn down by the pain of what had happened. But every time Emmanuel smiled at me, something in my chest warmed. He was my miracle. One morning, as I was cleaning the living room, Isabella came to me and said something that froze me in place. Mama, do I have to call him my brother? I looked up at her, broom still in my hand. What do you mean, sweetie? I mean, Emmanuel. He's my brother, but also my nephew, right? My heart stopped. She was only 10 years old, but the world had already shown her too much. I sat down and pulled her onto my lap. Listen, Isabella. Emmanuel is your baby brother. That's what he'll always be. What happened before he was born was wrong. It hurt all of us. But he's not the mistake. He's the gift we got out of it. She nodded slowly, but I saw the confusion in her eyes. Will he ever know? She whispered. I didn't know what to say. That was a question I had been asking myself every day. Maybe, I said honestly. But not now. When he's older. When he can understand. She nodded again and leaned against me. We sat in silence for a while. Then she asked, Can I help feed him today? I smiled. Of course, my love. That night, I sat alone in my room and began to write. I picked up a sheet of paper and started slowly. David, I received your letter. I didn't want to read it, but I did. I want to say that I hate you. But the truth is, I hate what you did.
I don't know what made you that way.
I don't know when the sweet boy I raised disappeared. But I want you to know this. I will never forget what you did. I will never pretend it didn't happen. But I will raise Emmanuel with love. He will never be punished for your sins. He will grow up knowing he is good and kind and capable of love. And I hope that one day, if you are truly sorry, you will change. Not for me, not even for him, but for yourself.
Mama.
I folded the letter and placed it in an envelope. I didn't know if I would send it, but it felt good to write it. A few days later, Daniel and I were sitting outside on the porch, watching the sunset. Emmanuel was in my arms, and the orange glow of the sky made his little face look golden. "I've been thinking," Daniel said softly. "About what?" "Maybe we should leave the village." I turned to him. "Leave?" He nodded. "The whispers, the stares, the people who pretend to greet you but gossip behind your back. I can't take it anymore. And neither should you." "Where would we go?" "Rosa said her cousin has a place in Valencia. A small house near the river. It's quiet, far from here." I looked at him. "We've lived here all our lives," I said. "This was supposed to be our forever home." "I know," he whispered, "but forever changed the day David broke our family." He was right. The next week, we packed what we could. We sold our goats and chickens, gave away the old furniture. Rosa helped us arrange the move. The day we left, I stood at the gate one last time and looked at the house where everything had happened, where love lived and where darkness had grown. I whispered goodbye. Valencia was peaceful. The air was different.
Softer.
People didn't know us there. We were just another family trying to live. I got a small job cleaning at a school. Daniel helped at a nearby farm. Isabella started at a new school. She made friends quickly. And Emmanuel grew. He was a happy child. He laughed often. He liked music and animals. He called me Mama and Daniel Papa. Sometimes I would wake up at night and stare at him in his crib. I would wonder what parts of him came from me and what parts came from David. But each time he smiled, I saw only hope. One afternoon, as I was folding clothes, I heard Isabella call out, "Mama, come see." I rushed out and saw her and Emmanuel playing with a puppy in the yard. They were both laughing.
Free. Light.
Like the pain had never happened. I leaned against the doorway and let myself smile. We were healing. It would take time, maybe years, but we were on the path. Later that evening, I received another letter. This one wasn't from David. It was from the facility. They said David had been improving. He had started joining group therapy. He spoke about his past, and he wanted to know if I'd ever allow him to meet Emmanuel. I folded the letter and didn't respond. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Because for now, my job was to protect my children, both the ones who came from love and the one who came from pain. And maybe that was the lesson of my life. That sometimes the deepest pain births the strongest love. The DNA test was done, but the truth was too dangerous to be read. The moment I gave birth to the baby, my heart broke. The baby looked nothing like my husband. My hands trembled as I held her tiny body close to mine. Her eyes, dark, sharp, and familiar, were a mirror of someone else. I tried to shake off the thought, but the resemblance was too clear. "She's beautiful," Peter whispered as he held our daughter. I nodded slowly, afraid of speaking. My lips felt heavy, with secrets. But the question started. Peter's mother was the first to speak. "She doesn't have Peter's ears," she said with a frown. "And her nose, it looks like someone else's." I tried to laugh it off. Babies change as they grow. But my heart knew what I was hiding. That night, I stayed awake staring at the ceiling. I could feel her little breath rising and falling beside me. I didn't need a DNA test to know the truth. But the truth was my prison. If Peter found out, he would never forgive me. He would leave me. And my son, my abuser, he was still in the same house. 3 days after we returned home, Peter's elder sister, Ruth, came to visit. She held the baby and smiled, but her smile was too long, too suspicious. "I have a friend in the lab," Ruth said slowly. "She does DNA tests for free if you want peace of mind." I froze. Peter chuckled. "Why would we need that?" Ruth's eyes fixed on me. "Just to be sure." Peter waved her off, but Ruth's words had already planted seeds in his mind. That night, Peter asked me quietly, Why do you think Ruth keeps mentioning DNA? I forced a smile. Ignore her. She's just dramatic. But Peter didn't ignore it. The next day, I saw him take a tiny piece of the baby's hair and put it in a small bag. I knew what he was doing. He had already decided to test. I panicked. I called my son, Kevin, who had been avoiding me since the baby came. You have to leave, I whispered on the phone. Peter is doing a DNA test. He cursed under his breath. What do you want me to do? Tell him the truth. I felt my stomach twist. Just stay away. Please. Kevin hung up. Days passed. Peter became cold and silent. He didn't hold the baby anymore. He barely looked at me. Then one evening, he returned from work holding a white envelope. My hands went cold. I recognized the seal. The result came, he said quietly. He didn't open it immediately. He sat across from me at the dining table and placed the envelope down. Should I read it? He asked. I couldn't speak. I shook my head. Peter stood up and walked out with the envelope still unopened. That night, he didn't sleep beside me. The next morning, I found the envelope still sealed in his drawer. He hadn't read it. But later that week, I woke up and found the envelope missing. I rushed to the living room. Peter was sitting in silence, the paper in his hand. His eyes were red. I fell to the ground. But he looked at me and said nothing. Instead, he tore the paper in half and threw it in the trash. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But most of all, I wanted to understand. Peter, did you read it? He looked at me with hollow eyes. I don't want to know, he whispered. I don't want to believe anything that will break me. I reached for him, but he stepped back. From that day, everything changed. Peter didn't leave, but he wasn't really there. He did what was required, work, food, sleep, but he stopped laughing, stopped talking. Our home became a house of silence. The baby cried, and I cried too. Then one rainy night, as I tried to sleep, the lights went off. The thunder roared outside. Suddenly, I heard a knock on the back door.
Slow. Heavy.
I wasn't expecting anyone. I crept downstairs, my feet shaking. I opened the back door, and there stood Kevin, dripping wet, eyes burning with something wild. What are you doing here? I whispered. I want to see her, he said. No, Kevin, not here. He pushed past me and walked toward the baby's room. I ran after him, grabbed his arm. You can't be here. Peter will. Suddenly, Peter stepped out of the hallway, holding a torchlight. Who's here? I froze. Kevin froze. Peter's light moved from me to Kevin, then back to me. His face was blank, but his eyes were full of thunder. What is my son doing in this house at this time? I couldn't speak. Kevin stepped forward. I just wanted to see the baby. Peter blinked. Why? Kevin looked down. Because I love her.
Peter turned to me.
Why does he love her like this? I started shaking. Kevin stepped closer to the crib, where the baby slept, unaware of the storm in the room. Peter watched us both. Then he whispered one word.
No.
He turned and walked out of the house. He didn't speak to me for 2 days. Then he came home and said calmly, You and your son must leave this house. I begged him. I cried. But he was unmoved. You lied to me, he said. I don't need a paper to know. And so, I packed my bags, with my daughter in my arms and my shame weighing on my shoulders. But the pain didn't end there. 2 weeks later, I received a call from Ruth. Did you hear what happened to Peter? My heart dropped. What? He's in the hospital. He tried to take his life. I dropped the phone. Everything shattered again. I rushed to the hospital. Peter was unconscious, machines beeping. I held his hand and cried. I'm sorry, I whispered. I never wanted this. But he didn't move. I looked at his face and realized he hadn't just lost his wife. He had lost his trust, his pride, his hope. I had destroyed everything. And then, that same night, while I stayed by Peter's bedside, Kevin walked into the hospital room, holding another secret that was about to break everything even more. The DNA results shocked the whole village. The hospital room was silent, so silent that I could hear my heartbeat drumming in my ears as I stared at the white envelope in my hand. The DNA results. This was the moment I had dreaded, prayed about, and hoped would somehow prove my fears wrong. I looked at my husband, Gerald. He sat across from me, arms folded, jaw clenched, his eyes fixed on the envelope as though it held the power to destroy everything he knew, and it did. Then there was Jordan, our son, who had now become a dark shadow in my life. He didn't look nervous. In fact, he seemed calm, too calm. He leaned against the wall, chewing his gum, his arms casually crossed. It made my skin crawl. "Open it," Gerald said finally, his voice low and full of suspicion. My hands trembled as I peeled back the seal. My vision blurred as I unfolded the paper, and I had to blink several times to focus on the words. Paternity test result. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. Conclusion. Jordan S. is the biological father of the child. My knees buckled. I collapsed onto the chair behind me, pressing the paper against my chest. I couldn't speak. I couldn't cry. I couldn't even look at Gerald.
He snatched the paper from me.
He read it slowly, then again, and again. Wherever you are watching from, please take a moment to comment below and subscribe to this channel. Thank you. "No," Gerald muttered, shaking his head. "This is wrong. This can't be true. This has to be a mistake." But it wasn't. I couldn't lie anymore. "Gerald," I whispered, but he raised his hand to silence me. "You slept with your own son," he growled. "You had a baby for him." Tears finally spilled from my eyes. "I didn't plan it. I didn't want it. You don't understand what happened. Don't you dare tell me I don't understand," he roared. "This is evil, Clara. Evil." I tried to explain how Jordan had abused me, how it wasn't consensual, how it all happened while Gerald was away. But Jordan had already poisoned his father's mind. He had told him that I had seduced him, and he was only a victim of my immorality. Gerald didn't believe me. He walked out of the room, slamming the door so hard that the windows shook. Jordan followed after him, his steps slow and smug. For days, I couldn't leave my room. The DNA results spread like wildfire in the village. Neighbors who used to greet me turned their backs.
Children pointed at me.
Women whispered behind my back. I had become a disgrace. One day, I saw my friend Olivia walking toward me at the market. I hadn't seen her in weeks. I thought she had also joined the others in avoiding me. But she looked furious. "I told you to run away," she hissed. "I warned you. But now look at what's happened." I looked down, ashamed. I thought if I stayed, I could protect my baby, protect my family. "Your family," she spat. "Clara, your husband doesn't want you. Your son is a monster. And the village? They already buried you," with their words. She grabbed my arm. "Come with me. Let's leave this place. There's a women's shelter 2 towns away. You and the baby deserve to live, not just survive." I hesitated. "Clara, this isn't love. This is war. And your silence is killing you." That night, I tried to pack a small bag. But I was too slow. The door creaked open behind me. I turned and found Gerald standing there, eyes red. "Where are you going?" he asked. I didn't answer. He stepped forward. "You think you can run? You think people won't follow you and your dirty secret?" "I'm not running," I said softly. "I'm escaping."
He scoffed.
"You think anyone will accept you after what you've done?" I stared at him. "Do you know what really happened, Gerald? Have you even tried to hear me out? You're a disgrace." "No," I said for the first time with strength. "Jordan is the disgrace. He forced himself on me. Repeatedly. I lived in fear for months. And you, my husband, chose to believe him over me." His hand twitched. For a moment, I thought he might hit me. But instead, he turned away. "I want you out of this house before morning." He left, slamming the door. I waited until 3 a.m. I strapped my baby on my back, picked up the small bag I had hidden, and tiptoed out of the house that had once been my home. The streets were quiet, but my heart pounded. Every shadow looked like danger. Every sound made me flinch. But I didn't stop walking. It took me 2 hours on foot before I reached the bus station. I didn't look back. The women's shelter was warm and quiet. For the first time in months, I was offered tea, food, and a clean bed. The counselor, a woman in her 50s, listened to me like I mattered. I told her everything. I didn't hold back. And when I cried, she held my hand and said, "You are not your pain. You are not your past. You are still worthy of love." I broke into tears again. This time, not from pain but from release. Back in the village, rumors spread like wildfire. Some claimed I had run away because I was guilty. Others said I had gone mad. Gerald refused to talk to anyone about what had happened. But Jordan, he took full advantage. He began flaunting his new life, walking around like a king who had won a war. But every kingdom built on lies eventually collapses. Weeks later, Jordan was arrested. A neighbor's daughter had come forward. She said Jordan had also tried to touch her. She had screamed and run. Her parents reported it to the police. An investigation began. And suddenly more girls started speaking up. Jordan was a predator, and now the village knew. I received the news while sitting on a bench in the shelter's garden. A staff member ran to me with the newspaper. Young man arrested for assaulting multiple girls. Village in shock. My hands trembled again, but this time with justice. I thought Gerald might reach out after learning the truth. But he didn't. Instead, Olivia came to visit. She smiled as she looked at my baby. "You named her Hope?" I nodded. "She's beautiful." I sighed. "She saved my life. She's going to grow up and know that her mother was strong. That her mother survived what others couldn't even speak of." I smiled faintly. "I'm still scared. Fear means you're still alive. And you have something to protect." A few days later, I was invited to speak at a women's gathering. At first, I said no. But then I remembered all the girls Jordan had hurt. All the women suffering in silence like I once did. I stood before them, shaking, tears in my eyes, and said, "My name is Clara. I was abused by someone I loved. I got pregnant. I was rejected by my family and community. But I'm still standing." The room went quiet. "I'm not here to ask for pity. I'm here to say, if you're in pain, you don't have to stay there. You can fight. You can heal. You can rise." A woman in the crowd sobbed. Another clapped. And soon, the room erupted in applause. For the first time, I felt like I belonged. Hope was growing quickly. Her eyes sparkled with innocence, and her smile reminded me daily that miracles do happen, even in the darkest places. But just when I thought the worst was behind me, I received a letter. It was from Gerald.
It read,
"I know the truth now. I know what her son did. But I've also learned something else. Hope, she's not just his daughter. She's mine too. I had done a secret DNA test months ago. She carries my blood too." I froze. What did this mean? Was Hope the result of Jordan's violence, or Gerald's confusion? Or worse, was she the result of both? I stared at Hope, sleeping peacefully in her crib. And my heart shattered all over again. The envelope was lying on the bed, wide open. I froze when I saw it. It was addressed to my husband, but it was written in my son Daniel's handwriting. I picked it up with shaking hands. My heart pounded as I read the words. "Dear Dad, there's something I've been carrying for so long, and I can't keep hiding anymore. I think it's time you knew the truth. Love, Daniel." That was all. It wasn't finished. But I knew what truth he meant. I sat on the edge of the bed, my knees weak. I held the letter tightly. My heart was thudding in my chest like a drum. If my husband saw this letter, if Daniel finished it, my life would be over. I tore the letter into tiny pieces and flushed them down the toilet. But the fear didn't go away. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept checking my phone, my door, and even Daniel's room. He had no idea I found the letter. He didn't even mention it. The next morning, I waited for him to leave for school, then went into his room. I searched everything, his drawers, his notebooks, under his bed. Nothing. No copy of the letter. No more notes. I sat on the floor and cried. I was trapped. And then something strange happened. I got a call from a woman named Madame Rosaline. She said she was a counselor at Daniel's school. I've been trying to reach you for some time, Mrs. Victoria, she said. Your son Daniel requested to speak with me privately during guidance sessions. He's been struggling emotionally. My stomach twisted. What did he say? He didn't go into details, but he did mention there was something going on at home that he can't talk about. He cried a lot. Tears came to my eyes again. Can you come in for a meeting? She asked gently. I think he needs someone to listen to him. I agreed. I didn't know what I was going to say. I didn't know if I could lie to a counselor. I didn't even know what Daniel was planning to reveal. But I knew if the truth came out, I could lose everything. My home, my marriage, my dignity. That night, I asked Daniel to eat dinner with us. My husband had already gone to bed early after drinking 2 bottles of beer. I sat across the table from Daniel, watching him carefully. He was quiet, focused on his food. I finally broke the silence. Daniel, can I ask you something? He looked up. Yes, Mom. That letter you wrote, the one for your dad. Why didn't you finish it? His fork stopped halfway to his mouth. He looked at me in surprise. You saw it? I nodded. I saw it on the bed. He looked down, ashamed. I wanted to tell him, but I couldn't. I don't know how. My hands were shaking. What were you going to say? He swallowed hard. That I hate myself and that I did something horrible. That I can't live with the guilt anymore. I got up, walked around the table, and sat beside him. I touched his hand. You're still a child, I whispered. I'm the adult. I failed you. But please don't tell anyone. Please. His eyes filled with tears. I don't want to hurt you, Mom. But I feel like I'm dying inside. I hugged him tightly. We both cried. I'm going to the counselor tomorrow, I said. She called me. I'll tell her something. Just not the full truth. Maybe she can help. The next day at school, I met Madame Rosaline. She was a kind-looking woman in her late 40s. She offered me tea, and I sat across from her nervously. She began, Daniel is a bright child, but something's holding him back. He's always anxious, distracted. When I asked what was wrong, he said he feels dirty and like a monster. Those were his words. I wiped a tear. I'm worried, she continued. Has he been abused? I gasped.
No.
No, he hasn't. She looked at me carefully. Mrs. Victoria, it's okay. You're not in trouble. But if anything's happened, anything at all, we need to help him. I couldn't speak. My throat was tight. The room was spinning. I'll keep seeing him weekly, she said gently. Please don't pressure him. Let him speak freely. The more secrets stay buried, the more they destroy the heart. I nodded and left. At home, Daniel avoided my eyes. I gave him space. But a few nights later, something even worse happened. My husband found a small baby's shoe inside my wardrobe. He came out into the living room holding it. Whose baby's shoe is this? He demanded. I froze. I'd kept that little shoe as a painful memory of the baby I gave away, the baby for my son. I swallowed hard. It's just something I kept. From a neighbor's child. He stared at me. You're lying. Why are you crying? I didn't realize I was. My hands were trembling. Victoria, he said slowly. What aren't you telling me? I could feel the truth rushing to my throat like bile. But just then, Daniel walked in. He saw the shoe. He saw me. And for the first time, he stepped forward and lied for me. That's mine, he said. I kept it for a school project about infant care. I must have dropped it in Mum's room. Sorry, Dad. My husband squinted at him. School project? You're in senior secondary. I know, Daniel said quickly. It was last term. I forgot to return it. My husband stared at him for a long moment. Then, without another word, he tossed the shoe on the couch and went outside. I turned to Daniel, my heart racing. Why did you lie? He looked pained. Because I can't bear to see him hurt. Not yet. Not like that. That night, I knew something had shifted between me and Daniel. We were both carrying the same weight. We were both prisoners of the same secret. And both of us were too weak to tell the truth. But secrets never sleep forever. And I was about to find that out the hard way. Because 2 days later, I received a call. A woman's voice. Calm, collected. Hello, Victoria. I know everything. And if you don't do what I say, your entire family will know too. My heart dropped. I clutched the phone. Who is this? You'll find out soon, the voice replied. Check your mailbox tomorrow. That's your first warning. Then the call ended. I ran outside, looked around. No one, no shadow, no sign. I was being watched. But by who? And how much did they know? The DNA result came out, and my husband said, I will kill whoever did this to my family. The house was quiet that morning. I could hear the sound of the birds outside the window and the soft whimper of baby Lily in her cot. But there was something else in the air, fear. The kind that grabs your throat and won't let go. Ben stood in front of me, holding the envelope from the hospital. The DNA test. The one we had both agreed on after months of pressure from the neighbors, the whispers, the suspicions, and most especially after Daniel's visit last week. Daniel, my son, my abuser. Ben had finally decided it was time to clear the air. He had no clue what the truth was, but he believed he was doing this to silence the evil people who were accusing our family. You open it, Ben said, his hand trembling as he handed it to me. I took the envelope with shaking hands. Inside it was just a piece of paper, but a paper that held the weight of our lives, our marriage, and my secrets. I read it silently. Then I read it again. Ben noticed my silence and snatched the paper from me. His eyes scanned the lines quickly. Paternity result. Daniel Westwood, 99.9% probability of paternity. Ben's face dropped. The paper slipped from his hands. He stepped back like he'd been shot. What is this? What is this? I collapsed to the floor. Ben, please. And oh, he screamed so loud Lily woke up screaming too. Ben looked at me like I was a stranger. You're telling me that Daniel, our son, is the father of this baby? Tears poured down my face. I couldn't speak. He started pacing back and forth, grabbing his hair. This can't be real. This can't be my life. My son. I got on my knees, sobbing. Ben, I was going to tell you. I swear. I didn't want this. I didn't, he turned to me with rage. You didn't want this? His voice cracked. You let me carry this baby. Feed her. Love her. And now I find out she's my granddaughter? I nodded slowly. Ben picked up a glass and smashed it against the wall. Where's Daniel? Where is he? Ben, please listen. I will kill him, he roared. I will kill whoever did this to my family. I held onto his leg, screaming. Don't go. Don't do anything stupid. He pushed me off. Stupid? You think I'm the one being stupid? You think you're the victim here? How long? I broke. Since you were in the hospital with your leg injury. He forced me. Ben froze. Forced? He asked softer. I nodded. I told him no. I cried. I begged. But he locked the door. Ben sat down. His breathing changed. He raped you? He asked in disbelief. I nodded again. And you didn't tell me? I sobbed harder. I couldn't. I was afraid you wouldn't believe me. Ben stood up again, now crying himself. I failed you. I failed you as a husband and as a father. For the first time, I saw my strong husband break down completely. I should have protected you, he whispered. We both sat there on the cold floor, crying for what felt like forever. The house that once held our dreams now felt like a graveyard of trust and hope. Hours passed. Ben called his brother, a police officer. Daniel was arrested the next day. And when I saw him in handcuffs, all he did was smirk and say, Now everyone knows you liked it, Mom. I fainted. When I woke up at the hospital, Ben was sitting beside me, holding Lily. She's innocent, he said. I can't hate her. I will raise her as my granddaughter. But I'll never forgive Daniel. Never. I didn't speak. There was nothing to say. The doctor came in shortly after to give me something that nearly stopped my heart again. Mrs. Westwood, you need to sit down for this, he said. What is it? He handed me a file. Your test results. We found something else. A shocking return and a final confession. I stared at the pregnancy test, and my hands began to shake uncontrollably. Positive. The room started spinning around me. I dropped to my knees, my mouth open, but no words coming out. I was pregnant again. And the father was my own son. I tried to scream, but it caught in my throat like a painful lump. My body felt weak, numb, and I fell flat on the floor. I didn't know how long I lay there, but when I came to, my daughter Leah was standing at the door, her eyes wide with worry.
Mom?
"Mom," she cried, rushing in to help me up. "What happened? Are you okay?" I couldn't tell her. How could I explain something so horrifying, so shameful? I swallowed hard, wiped my tears, and forced a lie. I just felt dizzy. "Maybe it's my blood pressure," I said. She helped me to the couch, and I pretended to rest while my mind raced in panic. How would I hide this pregnancy? My husband hadn't touched me in months. How would I explain this to him? How would I explain it to the world? That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat alone in the kitchen, staring at the pregnancy test I had hidden under the sink. 1,000 thoughts attacked my mind. I was back in the same nightmare. But this time, it was worse. I remembered the first child, little Ava, who I gave birth to secretly and sent away. Now I was pregnant again. What if someone found out? What if this child looked like Charles? What if I didn't survive childbirth? I picked up a knife and stared at it. My reflection on the shiny blade looked like a ghost. A broken woman. An abused soul. A mother who had lost all her dignity. But just as the thought crossed my mind, I heard a soft knock at the back door. Knock. Knock. I froze. It was midnight. Who could it be? I tiptoed to the door and opened it slightly, peeking through the crack. And there she was.
Ava.
Standing in the dark, with a small bag in her hand and tears running down her face. "Mom," she whispered. I pulled her in and locked the door quickly. My heart pounded so loud I could barely hear her speak. How did you find me?" I asked, pulling her into the kitchen. "I ran away from the woman you left me with. She hurt me, she hit me, and she told me you were a bad woman," she said through sobs. But I didn't believe her. "I found a paper in her drawer with your name on it. I searched you up and walked all the way here." I hugged her tightly, tears pouring from my eyes like a flood. "I'm so sorry, baby. I was trying to protect you. I never wanted to let you go." She looked up at me with those eyes. Eyes like Charles's. And that moment I broke again. I couldn't keep hiding. I had to tell someone. I couldn't carry this second pregnancy alone. So the next morning, I called an old friend from school, Miriam. She was a nurse and lived in another town. She had always been kind. I told her I needed help, without explaining everything. "Come stay with me for a while," she said without asking questions. So, I packed a few things. I wrote a note to my husband, saying I needed time to heal and had gone to visit an old friend. Then I took Ava and left. At Miriam's house, I finally found some peace. She didn't push me to talk. But one evening, while we sat in her backyard under the stars, I broke down and told her everything. From the day Charles first abused me, to the first pregnancy, to the secret birth of Ava, to this second pregnancy, and my broken marriage. Miriam cried. She didn't judge me. She held my hand and said, "You didn't deserve this. But I'm proud of you for surviving. You're stronger than you think." Her words were the balm my soul needed. But peace didn't last long. 1 week later, I received a call from my husband. "I know where you are. And I know everything," he said in a cold, angry voice. I froze. What do you mean?" He laughed. "Charles told me. He said you seduced him. That you manipulated him into doing what he didn't want to do. He said you were obsessed with him." My mouth dropped open in horror. "He's lying. He abused me. He threatened me." I cried. "I don't believe you," my husband said. "You're sick. You disgust me. You're not welcome in my house again." The phone cut. I collapsed on the floor. Charles had turned everything around. He had painted me as the monster. Now the world saw me as a seducer, a wicked mother, a devil. I had lost everything. My husband, my home, my name. But I still had Ava. And I still had a child growing inside me. And I was determined not to let them suffer the way I had. Miriam helped me book therapy sessions. I attended every week. I began healing slowly. Ava started school, and every time she smiled at me, I felt a little more human. When the time came to deliver my second baby, I was scared.
But Miriam was by my side.
And when I finally held the baby boy in my arms, I cried not because of the pain, but because of the miracle. A miracle that came from darkness, but gave me a reason to live. 3 months later, Charles was arrested. Turns out he tried to do the same thing to another girl. She reported him. The police investigated, and they found hidden recordings on his laptop, recordings of me crying, pleading, begging him to stop. That was all they needed. Justice finally came, but my heart was still broken. 1 year later, I stood in court and read a letter. To my husband, to the world, to every mother suffering in silence. I said, I was abused in my own home, by my own son. I was blamed. I was cast out. But I survived. I speak not just for me, but for every woman who hides her tears behind makeup, who cooks dinner while her heart bleeds, who lies in bed afraid to breathe. You are not alone.
Speak. Fight.
Heal. The court went silent. And for the first time, I felt proud. Today, I live with Ava and her little brother in a small town. I changed my name. I started a support group for abused mothers. People call me strong, but I'm just a survivor. And if you're reading this, so are you. Speak up. Break the silence. There is life after the pain. There is light after the dark. And even in the ugliest truth, there is a path to freedom. Thank you for watching this powerful true story about a grandma's pain, silence, and strength. Sometimes, the people who are meant to protect us are the ones who hurt us the most. But even in the darkest moments, hope finds a way to shine through. If this story touched your heart, please leave a comment below and let us know where you're watching from. Your words mean so much to us and the community we're building. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss any of our real-life inspired emotional stories. We have many more eye-opening and heartfelt stories coming your way, stories that give a voice to the unheard and strength to the broken. Be part of our journey. Thank you for supporting this channel. Together, we heal through stories.